Welcome to your Libra horoscopes for the week of March 31st through April 6th. And we have no planets in Libra this week, although we do have Lilith, or also known as the Dark Moon's influence in Libra this week. And we are dealing with a Mercury retrograde. It starts this week as well on the 2nd of April, as a matter of fact. So I'm sure that that Mercury retrograde is going to influence things a little bit, especially with focus being on the home and Lilith's focus being on making changes in the home. And what's interesting this week is that Lilith is a full direct, all of a sudden goes retrograde and starts to go backwards. And so we kind of sort of enter the week with this sense of, oh my God, I want to make all these changes and I want to make all these improvements in the house. And I really just want to eliminate some things in the home that just aren't working. And then when the Lilith goes retrograde, it's like you could not make these changes if you tried your hardest to do so. And this is where the Mercury retrograde influence, I should say, really comes into play here. Because Mercury in retrograde in Aries, first of all, that is your opposition sign, which is good that there's no planets in uh Libra this week. But it being in Aries is a very angry, sometimes volatile sign. Now, it's not a I hold grudges forever typically I hold grudges forever sign. I mean, there is an element to that in some rams for sure. But for the most part, most Aries, they're happy-go-lucky. They just go along with life. They do what they're gonna do. Something happens, there's a big explosion, they get really angry, they get over it, and they move on. So these are small explosions that come up throughout the course of the week. And it really does depend on how you manage these explosions. That's what it comes down to, especially around things that you would like to change and just can't. If you look at it and look at how Libras typically are, most of the Libras that I've known, it's not that they don't get obsessive over things. I've seen some get obsessive over things, but it's not so much. Most of the time when a Libra approaches a situation that there's absolutely nothing that they can do about, they kind of sort of, will table it until they can come back and find a solution for it later on. This is different. This is like, I really want to change this and I just can't, and it becomes an obsession. And I really feel that that's what you have to be aware of this week, because that obsession can take over. It can take over everything that you're doing. It can just become such a flippin' nightmare for you that it just makes everything miserable after that. So my best advice in getting through this, I really feel, is to basically focus on the things that you can change and not focus all of your energy on the things that you can't. Most humans swap that, and we focus all of our energy on what we can't change and do nothing about what we can. And that really starts to make you feel like there is nothing you can do, or you're powerless to do anything. And in all honesty, that's like the worst possible place to be. It's like you're floating in the ocean and you're just kind of sort of sitting there waiting for somebody to hopefully maybe drop a line to save you, right? And guess what? There probably won't be one. You don't want to put yourself in that position. That's really the bottom line. You want to stay cardinal. You want to stay fluid in terms of what it is that you're doing. So the less you focus on the things that you can't change, like say other people, for example, the more you focus on what you can change, it does make things a lot easier and smoother. Good example of this, really, especially if you're dealing with other people's anger a lot, because being that there's a Mercury retrograde in Aries, it is going to not just trigger your own anger, but the people around you. And that can be really frustrating. Nobody wants to deal with that. Best advice for that is, when you get to a point where you just cannot take that anymore, first of all, Mercury retrograde, Choose your words wisely. When you approach somebody with an argument, guess what you're going to get back? And it's not ever a situation that will be resolved. It's better for you to change your approach. When you change your approach, you might get a different reaction from that person. Thus, you might actually have a conversation instead of an argument, which most of the time you Libras run from anyways, because most of the Libras that I know don't like conflict. But a lot of the Libras that I know also create that conflict in order to run away from it. It's a vicious cycle. We're in a Mercury retrograde. The Mercury retrograde is bringing up specific issues in our lives that we need to resolve for ourselves. And they are using the people around us to do that. They're all part of that lesson. And each one of us is learning a lesson, and we're all playing into each other's lessons. So, my best advice is don't try and pound a square hole into a round peg, or a round peg into a square hole. Sorry about that. If it's not going to fit, find a way to make that peg fit without trying to jam it in there, number one. And number two, also be aware of how your reaction to what's going on around you could be playing into the problem. The more you take power over your situation, instead of focusing on things that you have no power to control, the easier it is for you to make the changes that you want to make, specifically those changes in your home. So that's what I have for you guys this week. Luckily, like I said, there's no planets in there to interact with that Mercury retrograde. We kind of had that a couple of weeks ago. So you guys dodged that bullet, which is good. You might not dodge it at the end of the Mercury retrograde cycle though with the moon. We will see what happens with that. That's what I have for you guys this week. If you love your horoscopes, do consider sending a tip or donation through my coffee link in the description. Really appreciate that. I'm Melissa Bruce, the Heavy Metal Psychic. I will see you guys next week. And in the meantime, you guys take your power back because it's yours and no one else should be holding on to that power. I will see you guys next week. You guys make it a great week.